Hi, everybody. My name is Tammy Ang, and I was at Rutgers from, oh boy, 1999 to 2003. So I'm quite old. I'm as old as Shepherd, actually, older than Shepherd, actually. Grad
Wow.
school, yeah, I know, right? Ancient. Um, I grew up in New York City, in the church life here in Queens. Um, I'm actually so excited to be here. I just want to say that. Like Rutgers, those 4 years at Rutgers were such a great experience for me. I don't know. Actually went to look for my Rutgers sweatshirt. I wanted to wear it, like, but then I thought it would be too corny for this. So I was really excited to just like see who are the students at Rutgers, because when Shep and I were there weren't that many. And to see all of you here, I'm just so excited. But like I said, I'm from New York City. I grew up in Queens, and I grew up in the children's meeting, young people's meeting here in Jamaica, Queens, New York. So uh, summer schools, and I applied to Rutgers my senior year because actually during the summer school, I met a sister. And she went to Rutgers. She was actually I was thinking about like the connection here. So the sister that went to Rutgers, who served me during my senior year in the summer school, was named Sherry, and Sherry was actually shepherded by Sophia, who I think was on this series a couple of weeks ago. I don't know when, but so it's just wonderful to like see how one shepherding leads to another, and how the Lord just works in miraculous ways that's beyond our understanding. So Sherry was my serving one. She's like a pseudo serving one, because she was just a friend, I think, more of a friend, because she was a goofball like me. And we just connected on a human level, not even like
Mm.
a prayer reading level, like it was just human. We talked about basketball, and it was just, she would just became a friend. Um, and she's like, come and visit Rutgers campus. I'm like, why not? It's a train ride away. So I just threw that in with, I really liked Rutgers when I visited. And I liked the fact that it was a train ride away, but I won't bump into my parents. So, and everybody else was in my class was applying to local schools, or at least somewhere. That's what the serving ones were encouraging us to do, actually, to locally, so that we have roots here, we have people who will take care of you. Don't go elsewhere where you have to like start all. They were just so afraid of losing us, I think,
Mm.
that they didn't want us to go too far. Um, but I'm like, I have Sherry's in the church, I'm good. So I applied, and I majored in history and exercise science. I double majored in history and exercise science while I was at Rutgers. That's me.
And Tammy, you had the privilege of going to the real Grease trucks, which
Yes,
incidentally they don't exist anymore, by the way.
I heard.
Yeah, so
How
we were kind of.
disappointing.
I know, I know. Um, so our next alumni is Mary Lee Smart, and so she's again here. So maybe Mary, you could introduce yourself to us.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. My husband was here a couple of weeks ago, Scott. Um, so it's nice to kind of be here later on. So I think some of you know me. I grew up in the church life in New Jersey. And my parents were fairly active in the church life. So I was kind of like Tammy, children's meeting, high school, young people's meeting. And I feel like my choice to go to Rutgers is like the complete opposite of Tammy. It was like familiar and half of it was because it was familiar, and then also half of it was really a practical reason. I mean, it was a good state school, and I knew it would save a lot of money. So I went there, and I majored in pharmacy. So I was there for 6 years. And then I graduated, I went to the training, and then I came back and I worked in Jersey for a little bit. And I actually went and got my master's at Rutgers. And actually, I'm doing my PhD now in Chicago. So for all those people who are in midterms, I know what it feels like. I can sympathize and empathize. But that's it. Yeah.
So Mary, what, I forgot if you said this, what years were you at Rutgers?
Oh, I was, okay, so it was a 6-year program, and I was there from 2005 to 2011.
Okay, so a little bit after Tammy. So like both of you said, both grew up in the church life, but Tammy is a little bit farther away from home, but you know, Mary, basically your backyard is
Yeah, I lived at home.
yeah, pretty much. But I think, anyways, you'll find tonight for all the college students who are joining that both of these sisters, although they had maybe a different background, but I think they shared a lot of similar experiences in the Lord. So, you know, we have a few questions that we prepared ahead of time. I think in your college experience, did you have any highlights, any particular experiences that really stood out, being in the homes, interacting with the brothers and sisters, even though Tammy, you of course came into a new situation, and then Mary, you've been so familiar with, the brothers and sisters in Piscataway all these years. Maybe you both could share something about that. I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Tammy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I guess chronologically, I'll go first. So I was gonna say, like, what the highlight of my college years was actually at Mary's house. Like, Auntie Judy's cooking was the highlight of my Rutgers life. I mean, like, on weekdays I'll do the grease trucks, and then on the weekends I get like really good home cooking at Mary's house. It was just I mean, the home meetings I was telling Mary this, like, they were a saving grace for me. They were it was a place where I went to at the end of the week where I'm like, oh, this feels like home. This is not home. These are, and the serving ones are much older. Obviously, they all have families, and I don't, Mary, were you in high school? I guess you were in high school at the time. I loved coming to your house, and like your brother, right? You guys are just running around like, oh, this feels like home, without the nagging and the judgments, like if I went home, my mom would nag me all weekend. Like, did you do this? But like at Mary's house, it was just pure love. Like, I don't know if you guys know Auntie Judy at all. Like the way she hugs you, like I I didn't even grow up here. Like I wasn't one of hers, like, in terms of like, Shep, you're one of hers, like, because you guys are all like all the kids in Piscataway, like you're like in her, like, her crowd, and I was an outsider, but the way she hugs you when you come to the home meeting, like, I'm like, oh, this feels like home, and that completely, like, that was I just felt like that was such a huge part of my my church life during the 4 years. Even though it was unfamiliar, I was very dependent on the saints to go to the meetings, because I didn't have a car. I didn't know, like, what do you guys have, the left hand turn, but the right exit to go left,
jug
like
handles.
that was jug handles, yes, like this, but like the saints picked me up from my dorm. Like, I went home like with containers of food at the end of every meeting. Like, it was just, I never have to worry about going to the dining halls after, like, on Sundays. I think like a lot of my experience is just around food, but You know, like the Saints fed me in every way. And it was just love. I just felt loved by the Saints in the homes, especially.
Yeah, I think everyone on this call, we've experienced at least Sister Judy's cooking, and actually, incidentally, just to let Mary and Tammy know, our last meeting literally before the campus shut down, this was back in March, was at the Lees, and I think we just felt like we really needed to just meet one more time all together. And I think looking back, we were really happy that, we had that opportunity to be together at that home, before, everybody went back to their homes. So Mary, maybe it's your turn. You could share a little bit about your experience while you were in college.
I wouldn't say I had it exactly the same experience. I mean, I think I was very lucky in the sense that I ate that food almost every day.
You had Sister Judy's cooking all day.
Now that I'm living on my own, right? I mean, I really miss it. I just given up, right? It's like so far away. So you guys are all very lucky. But I would say this feeling of home, I knew my parents as like my parents, so in some sense, I had the feeling of being really shepherded and like just being in a home without the nagging and just like the love. And like, I still experienced that when I was at Rutgers, actually. So like, I mean, some like very highlights, I think, I mean, I feel like it was like I had a lot of fun, actually. I loved serving. I really didn't like school. I actually, to this day, I still don't know why the Lord put me through that. But but I'm still in school too. So, but I think like there were also times that were like very hard. And I feel like those were memorable, not because they were fun to go through, but because I think through that, I got to experience an aspect of the church life that I never experienced before. I got moms and dads that I really didn't think I would have had, like living at home at Rutgers. So yeah.
You mentioned you got moms and dads, like spiritual fathers and mothers. What was the process? Did you, prior to college, did you have concepts concerning maybe like older saints? Like, can I open up to them? How did they become your spiritual father and mother? It's a follow-up question to Mary.
Okay, so I would say like when I was like in high school, I didn't avoid the older saints like the plague. Like I wasn't like actively trying to I feel like I've interacted with them, but I definitely had concepts about like who they were. They were like, my parents' people. They were like my serving ones. And I think my concept was like twofold. I felt like they expected something out of me. And then I also had some kind of expectation or concept regarding who they were. And so I don't know. And I think a lot of this is because some of these opinions are formed because you only interact with them in the meeting. You only see them when they speak in the meeting, or you see them when they're reprimanding you in the YP meeting, so you form a very narrow opinion and concept regarding who they are. And I think a lot of that kind of came crashing down in college, and I was almost like forced to have to open up to someone. And, probably up to that point, when I open up, it was like, here is a nice box of roses and puppies and butterflies, and this is all wrapped up really nicely, and this is what I'm opening up to you. And I was in a situation where my box was like moldy bread, spiders, bugs, it was just, but that's just what was going on inside of me at that time. And I just had to open up to someone. And it's not like, I had some friends, and you can open up, but it's kind of like that hymn that says, what's that hymn? Burdens too small for other hearts to share. It's just like, there are just some people who can't even bear something small. Even as you're talking to them, you just realize it. And then, I don't know, I think I realized when I was in this situation, and I was almost like, I'm opening up and I'm like closing my eyes because I'm just waiting for, like rejection. And then you just realize, like, these moms and dads are just, they're there to love you. They're there to, and it's not because, okay, they are loving and wonderful human beings, but I think it's because you just touch something that's very, very real. I don't know. Sometimes we are all human, and we're all limited, and we're all wounded. And, sometimes through some of the older saints or some brothers and sisters, the Lord is just able to pour oil and wine. So sorry, that's quite long-winded, but yeah.
No, yeah, that's really good. Maybe jumping back to Tammy, did you have any concepts while growing up in the church life? I mean, you could bring out experiences in Rutgers, but it doesn't have to limit to that. I don't know if you want to say anything about.
Yeah, I think we all, I mean, for church kids, we all have certain preconceptions, and usually, like, I feel like that's why going away to college, like, I felt like I had a clean slate. Like, nobody knew what kind of kid I was, nobody could be like, oh, I remember you when you were, no, you don't know anything about me, which is great. But back in New York, like back in Queens, the prior concepts are always, if you have a problem, you share with a serving one. I don't know what it is. I always think they want to read with you. Like, pray reading was just like the answer to every problem you may have. And like, sometimes, like, I just don't want that answer. I'm like, no, you just need to listen. But because they know who I am, they know who my brother is, which is another story. Like, they know who like, they know my past. They know I've always been, either like a goody two shoes, like she's always memorized her verse, like she's always checked off those morning watch sheets. Like, they have a preconception of me as well, so for me to bring up a problem that's so like, this is not Tammy wouldn't have a problem like this, but as we grow older, we face different issues, and that's why I felt like at Rutgers I was able to connect with older saints without that, like that baggage. But at the same time, my serving ones from Queens did check on me. And that was very sweet as well, and they want to make sure that I am connected locally. I was talking to my mom this afternoon. I'm like, Mom, why did you let me go to Rutgers? Like, I was like, I'm about to go on this call tonight. Like, what was there, like, were you afraid I was never going to come back? Like, was there, like, did you even love me at all? Like, you just threw me to Jersey and you didn't like care about me? No, but like, she's like, oh, I know there's a local church there. And she forgot Sherry's name, but she's like, oh, that sister was there too. That sister from the Air Force, she was there, right? So there's like this family, like this closeness, that even though she has no idea who the families are, like never met Auntie Judy, never met like Auntie Sunny or anybody, but she's like, there's a church life there. And as long as you show up, as long as they have your phone number, dorm number, they have your, you'll be fine. And I was fine, I mean, I turned up, praise the Lord, I was fine, but yeah.
Amen. Yeah, actually, I think a lot of the students currently that are here at Rutgers probably share the same experience as you, Tammy, although they're not from New York. But now, just thinking about it, there are 10 churches in New Jersey, and most of the ones who are at Rutgers are not from Piscataway, they're just from the different churches, you know, across the state. So so in one sense, yeah, 10. So sometimes, yeah, they come here, and I think it matches your experience. Saints don't really know them, but anyway, still have a loving concern for them. I don't know, do any of you two want to add anything else before we move on to our next question? No. Okay, so we just want to ask, I think this is hopefully relatable to the students, that at any moment in your college years, did you have any doubts related to your faith? Did you ever feel like, you know, in the course of 4, or Mary, in your case, 6 years, you were tested, and, you know, like fiery trials almost? And maybe you could share a little bit about any struggles and any helps that you received along the way. Maybe Mary, do you want to go first?
I mean, to answer your question in brief, Shepherd, for sure, like 100% for sure. I mean, at least for me, like growing up till high school, it's like, you know, fairly, it's like everything is fairly like structured, sheltered, and really there's like no pressures. And it's to be asked, like maybe college. I mean, I think everyone who's older than me will say it just kind of gets worse. So it's really not that bad until you go on. But anyway, but I know when I was in college, there was a point in time where I don't know, I had gone through something, and then I just remember I did feel like this was it was a test. It was a test in the sense I almost felt like I was testing the Lord, but you know, because I felt like I really struggled with the Lord. I really struggled with the church life. I really struggled with, it just felt like what I had known up to that point was being a little bit challenged. Like, is this real? I'd gone through the summer school of truth. I knew the verses, and yet when it matched up to this experience, it's just like it didn't meet it, you know? And in some sense, like testing, I mean, it's life. It's kind of just part of the human fabric. We can't escape like fiery trials in a sense. It's kind of just part of growing up. But I don't know. I think at that point in time, a lot of questions were like, well, it's just, you know, doubting the Lord. I was kind of angry at the Lord. I think I was mentioning to Tammy yesterday, like I was like kicking at the goads. You know, I don't know if you guys know what that analogy means, but like, you know, you're trying to, you know, you hook an ox up to like this thing so that it can do what it needs to do, and you're kind of like prodding at it, and what the ox does, it kicks at you. I think for me, I just really had to struggle with the Lord. And part of it was because I think for me as a person, and the Lord knows this, I just needed to know that the Lord could handle me, that like I was not a problem, and whatever I would drag up was not going to be a problem for the Lord. And I think it's like, there are times where I was like, Lord, are you really okay with this? And this was like pointing at me, like, are you really okay with this? And, you know, the Lord's like, you know, actually, it's only later on when I feel like the Lord was like, I know I'm okay with this. I know that I'm okay with this. And you're the only one who doesn't know this. So you just have to pass through this and struggle with me and wrestle with me. And I feel like after probably passing through that in college, I think that was probably the first time when I really began to appreciate the Lord's love for actually me personally. You just realize like the Lord just loves us. Not because of what we can do, not because we're good church kids, actually, we truly don't know like who we are. But the Lord is very clear. And it's only when we begin to see a little bit of who we are that like we kind of just like fall apart. And the Lord had never had a problem with that. I don't know, I just felt like after passing through some things, I just realized like actually the Lord's heart toward us is very good. Even though at the time it was very difficult. And at that time, there was a lot of questionings and there wasn't immediate answers. I think you just realize like the Lord is actually very faithful. Especially sometimes these things are just to bring us on further to know him in a way that we never would have known him before. And so sometimes the response is like, Lord, I almost would go through that again, you know, almost. But because what came out is very precious. And he knows just how far to mark it. He just knows where the boundaries are. And he knows you. He knows each of us in a very detailed, unique way, in this unique experience, in the timing of it. He knows it, and we can trust him. And he's faithful to bring us through it. So
yeah. Anyways, we're asking because this week we are starting Second Timothy, which is the last book that Paul writes, and it's a book filled with exhortation. It's a very deep book. I think deep in the sense that Paul had a lot of feeling because his departure was at hand. And so it's very interesting, when we come to this matter of faith, in Second Timothy, the first chapter, verse 5, there's this term, right? Unfeigned faith. Actually, this is the second time it appears. And so this faith that actually Paul had to remind Timothy, right? He's tracing his genealogy, his mother, Eunice, grandmother Lois, and now dwells in you, which actually he says, I'm persuaded that also dwells in you. So it almost seems like Paul needed to remind Timothy, right? Timothy, you have this faith, and it's an unfeigned faith. And I feel like actually, just like you, Mary, I think all of us, we realize that all of these trials, right? All of these sovereign arrangements that the Lord allows us to pass through is to produce this unfeigned faith, this faith that is without hypocrisy, right? Without pretense. It's something so real. So back to you, Tammy. I don't know if you also encountered this while you were at Rutgers. Anything that you would like to bring out to the students?
It's interesting because I don't know whether it's old age or just lack of, like brain power to remember. I really thought hard, Shepherd, for this. And I feel like I'm going to say something that sounds obnoxious, but I have a follow-up explanation to it. I feel like I want to say no, there was not a time where like I can remember dramatically doubting my faith. Like, am I a Christian? Is God real? Like those questions that are like philosophical questions of faith. And not because I'm a great Christian or not because I am, like more spiritual than anybody else. Actually, I'm pretty I'm not, I'm a wimp in many ways. And, but I feel like, through the years at college, I did make a few friends who have in conversation challenged the Christian faith in general. Not me, but like when I was bold enough to say, I'm a Christian, which is not always, but when I was bold enough to like make a statement as, I go to church on Sundays, or, have my Bible out, or whenever there was that expression that I am a Christian, I did get in terms of challenging my, like, oh, like challenging the Christian faith. Like, how could you in this day and age still believe in God? And what's interesting is that in, you know, like the serving ones have always warned us that's going to happen in college. And I always like, oh my God, that's so scary. That's so crazy. Like, how could anybody challenge God? Like, what do you say? And then like in summer school, you kind of like, I don't know if this happened with you guys, but like I had to like, I felt like I need to practice what to say in those situations. Like have a script, like if anybody challenges the existence of God, Genesis 1:26, I don't know, like 1:26 and 27. And that's always like the go-to verse or some sort of like a script to answer that question. But I have to say, like, I'm sorry to say, like, there's a lot of times I didn't pick those fights, but I can honestly say I never doubted who I am. I never doubted the you know, it's been very interesting you mentioned Second Timothy, because I went back and read it, and the one thing I had underlined in my, you know how everybody's like reading Bibles and they're on their phones, I actually found my physical copy of the Bible, and from Second Timothy I actually had underlined verse 12, for I know whom I have believed, and I am persuaded that he is able to guard my deposit unto that day. And I felt like I had a good deposit, whether I was a good, you know, I didn't, like I said, I didn't pick every fight, you know, there might be, maybe the serving ones would have called it, I still call them serving ones. I'm like, I'm so old. I can't believe I still call them like my serving ones, you know, like my serving ones would have said like, that was a great opportunity, you could have like preached the gospel, like how great was that, like if somebody even challenged the existence of God, here's what you say, here's the verses you pull out, you know, these are, I like froze, like I don't know, like stage fright, I don't know what happened, I was a wimp, I didn't want to pick that fight, but I know who I am. I am persuaded by the deposit that's in me. So, you know, like I wasn't the go-getter in terms of like converting others to being a Christian, but in my head, I knew, because I was warned in young people's meeting that these things happen, right? So when it appeared, when it like came up in conversation, number one, I wasn't surprised. And number two, I say, you know, like, this is what they're talking about. I can either be the person I am not, which is to preach the gospel and use this time to like tell them a piece of my mind. But I backed away from those fights, but with never a doubt that, Lord, this is your enemy working, but I am so glad that I know who I am. I may not have the utterance. I may not have the, you know, I may not have the words. I may not be as eloquent to, you know, express how I feel. But, you know, the one thing I remember is no one can argue with your experience. So I may not have the scientific evidence that God is real, you know, but I know that, you know, I believe in God, and, you know, God is very real to me. I don't know how to, sometimes the conversation just ends it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, I know it's not because my mom forced me to be a Christian. You know, it's a personal choice, and I don't have the answer to the questions that you're throwing at me, but I know who I am. And I know, just like the verse said, you know, like that he is able to guard that deposit. And I felt very blessed that through my 4 years, my deposit was guarded. The Lord was faithful to guard my deposit. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to keep me, I think.
Amen. Yeah. Actually, I'm looking at these verses. I appreciate you bringing out verse 12. And it's very interesting because this phrase, guard my deposit, in verse 14, it appears again, you know, guard the good deposit. And sandwiched in between 12 and 14 is hold a pattern of the healthy words, right? And so I think this deposit is the healthy words that, you know, when we were young, you know, the faithful serving ones. They're still our serving ones.
Yeah.
You know, they were faithful to deposit, right, these words into us. And as long as we can apply it, we could experience it. These words, these healthy words are truth, like you said. No one can argue against, you know, your genuine experiences of the Lord. You know, I mean, society is changing. What's right, what's wrong, what's going on. It's very hard, you know, to put your trust on these things, what man says, right? But I think we're also privileged here, right, that we could have this deposit, right, this good deposit that's in us, right, and this deposit is what will keep us and keep our faith strong. Mary, do you have anything else you wanted to slip in here before? We're pretty much out of time. But just, anything else?
We can just continue, Shepherd.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I know we're almost out of time, but I think we just want to, let's see, let me look at the questions here again. I think we just wanted to open it up to you all. I mean, this is such an opportunity. Is there any words of encouragement, you know, knowing that, you know, 2 Timothy is such a you know, weighty word from Paul to Timothy, his spiritual child. And, you know, we've been mentioning this to all the students this semester, that, you know, we really, you know, we stand on the shoulders of the ones who've gone before us. And so, you know, the saints who've experienced, you know, the Lord at Rutgers, the church life, you know, we just want to hear from you all. So you had any particular feeling to say something to this group of students. So I don't know, Mary, if you want to kind of give a little short conclusion.
Maybe I'll conclude with two things. So I've been considering this word, like I guess the highlight two words is unfeigned faith. And, you know, I think faith is, if you go into Hebrews, the definition of faith is that it's not from us. It's just not something that comes out of us. And I think Paul is reminding Timothy that there is something in you that is put in you and also produced in you that is something not of you. It's not changing. It doesn't matter your circumstance, how you feel, it's there. And I think the Lord is using many things to produce something very precious inside of us, so that even if you don't want to believe him, even if you want to run away from him, even if you just want to be complacent and you don't want to really go on, there is something in you that is just there. And that's not relative to you. It's something that the Lord has put in you and has produced in you and will produce and refine in us. And I think that is such a hope, that it's not dependent on us in some sense. Of course, there's always our cooperation and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the point I'm stressing here. But I think, you know, in the verse that Tammy brought out, I know him who I have believed. And I think through many experiences, the Lord is going to bring us so that we can know him, Amen. Not just know about him, but know him in the many layers of what that means. To know that he is gracious, that he's faithful in this situation and in that situation and in that environment. And under all those circumstances, he's still faithful. And maybe just a side note I'd like to add. I think through many situations, I think it's very easy to doubt the Lord's heart for us. And I think usually when we're down and we struck out, I think that's when the enemy is going to come in and lie to us, especially in that time where he'll cause us to be like, you know, the Lord doesn't love you. The church life doesn't care about you. The church life only wants you to be X, Y, and Z. And like, that's a lie. And I would just encourage you, like, it's really hard, especially if it's like you've never done this before, but just go and open up to someone probably older and just let the Lord care for you in the body, because the supply is there and the love is there. And that's it. I know I'm over time.
No, that's good. Thank you so much. Tammy, any parting words?
I think I'm just so encouraged that there's, I don't know how many how many people are here, like 23. I mean, midterms, like, and people are here, you know, and I just feel like, I guess my word of encouragement is similar to Mary's, like, regardless of how you feel or where you think you are, just show up. Just show up, because you are in the church life. There's just people who love you, who want to be there for you, even if you don't want them there, even if you don't want any help, or you don't know what you need at this time. Just show up every Sunday, every, I don't know, Wednesday, whenever the campus meeting is. Even if you don't participate, just show up and the Lord will work through. And it's by just showing up, I think, just presenting your bodies, you know, presenting your time. The fact that you guys are all here, I mean, think about how easily you could have just been like, well, I have to study, so I can't be here for this hour and 3 minutes now that we're over. But like, you know, we just can't be here. But don't forsake the assembling of the body, regardless of how you feel. And even if you don't participate, even if you feel like, I'm definitely not going to open up, I'm not even going to turn on my camera, or, you know, or anything, you know, in this day and age, but just showing up, I think that will keep us, because
Amen.
To be reminded that there are people who share the same faith and who loves us, you know, that's always a good reminder.
Amen. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really like what you just ended with. Just show up. We present our bodies. We're open to the Lord. You know, and just when you were speaking, remind me of the verse, Romans 10:17, right? I think especially when we feel our faith maybe, you know, kind of weak, we need to show up, right? Faith comes from hearing, right? And at the meetings, you know, you get a little injection of the word, your faith gets strengthened. So I think, yeah, we just like to encourage all of the students. Oh, by the way, I promise you, this is not scripted. Anyways, I just appreciate our sister encouraging us to just show up. And so we just want to encourage you all to show up. Thank you for all joining tonight. But here's my little plug for the college conference at the end of this month. Registration is due this Lord's Day, but if you have the opportunity, I encourage you, just register tonight. Amen. Take our sister's encouragement. Just show up to the conference, and you go. You will hear the speaking of faith, and we will all be strengthened, right, to continue to run this race. So we apologize for going a little bit over, but you know, just like what we do in the past, you know, we're officially done. But if any of you would like to unmute